Hey guys, I'm Rachel and welcome back to Auxhart Gardening. Today I'm planting out my garlic for the year and I'm going to take you guys through that process with me. Okay, so let's talk about what garlic is. So garlic is a bulb and it is really similar to a lot of the flower bulbs that you might be familiar with. You put one in the ground and then over time it splits into many. And garlic, most people will harvest as an annual, but it can actually be used as a perennial, like any other bulbing flower that you're familiar with. You can put one in the ground and it'll come up, flower, and then die off, and every year it splits more and more. But if you are growing garlic for the purpose of harvesting, storing, and eating it, then you'll probably want to cultivate it as an annual. So before you go buying your garlic to plant, there is an important thing that you should know. There are two types of garlic that you can grow. There is soft neck, which you'll notice is kind of like a flimsy neck garlic. You can see maybe in the middle that there's no hard stem, and you'll notice this as you're pulling the garlic apart too. A soft neck doesn't have the hard stem, but a hard neck does. And I don't have any of those right now, but if you had a hard neck, you would see the stem go all the way through, and as you're pulling apart the garlic cloves, there will be kind of like a little stick in the middle, whereas with the soft necks, you won't see that. And the reason this is important is because hard neck and soft neck garlics are made for different climates. A soft neck garlic will grow better in the south, where it's warmer, or north, I guess, depending on which hemisphere you're in. And a hardneck is for a colder climate. So a hardneck garlic requires a, oh, hello baby. So a hardneck garlic, so a hardneck garlic requires a period of cold before it will bulb up. And a softneck garlic doesn't really require that as much. And so if you're living in a warmer region, you'll want to plant softneck garlic as opposed to hardneck garlic. And I learned this lesson the hard way last year when I planted hardneck garlic here in South Carolina, and I ended up with itty bitty little garlic bulbs because it hadn't really had that like natural signal that it was time to bulb up. So this year I am planting all softneck garlic. I have 3 different varieties that I'm planting. Now, the basics of planting garlic. You'll notice garlic bulbs. This is a particularly large one because of the variety, but garlic is covered in this paper. And there's a bit of a layer that goes all the way around the outside of it. And as you keep peeling in, you'll get to where you can start pulling apart individual cloves. Like this. Right? This is what we're used to. And so with the clove, you have 2 parts. You have the top part here and then kind of the pointy end. And as you're growing garlic, you can see on this bigger one, this is where the roots were and this is where the stem was. So as we pull it apart and you're planting, you're going to want to put root side down, stem side up. And it's important to keep intact kind of the paper around each individual clove. You don't want to peel it all the way down the way you would for cooking, because this is its little protective casing that's going to help contribute to its surviving in the soil long enough to grow. So I have my bed all ready to go. I just put some compost over the top of it, and I'm going to go ahead and plant my garlic into it, and then we're going to cover it with a little bit of mulch. So this is the easiest thing ever. Remember, pointy end up and then root end down. And honestly, all you're going to do is kind of press it down into the soil. And let's get a little bit of a close-up here for you. Alright, so here's our little garlic, and it just goes right in there. And then we'll cover it up. And that's all there is to it, really. So the other thing to consider as you are putting your garlic cloves in the ground is the spacing. Now, the spacing will be different depending on the size bulbs that you're growing. So for something like this, you're going to want to make sure to give it more room than something that's more the size of like a normal garlic clove that you would buy. And so the way I'm going to be spacing them out is, for these bigger ones, I'm going to give them about the width of one bulb in between them. And for the smaller ones, I'll do that. Garlic can be planted fairly close together, especially because the stems will go straight up and it's not like a big leafy thing that's going to shade its neighbors out. So I'm going to put, again, one bulb length in between my cloves and just plant them out in rows. As you're going, you're going to run into some cloves that are much smaller than others, and you can still plant these for sure, but they don't have as good of a chance of giving you a good bulb as a bigger clove is. So if you want to, you can just take these inside and use them up like normal garlic. You can also plant them and see what happens, which is what I'm going to do with most of mine. So, if you haven't noticed yet, it is November here in South Carolina, and you might ask, why am I planting my garlic right before it's about to freeze? Well, I'll tell you. So, garlic goes through two major growing phases. Phase one is going to be the germination and then the formation of the root system. And it kind of does this pretty slowly over the winter. If you have a hardneck garlic and you're planting in a very cold zone, it's going to start doing that before the freeze, and then it's going to go dormant while it's very frozen, while the ground is solid. And then once the ground starts warming up again, it will start shooting up some of its green leaves. If you're in a warmer region, it's just going to start out again with its root system, and then it's going to kind of grow slowly over the winter, and then when it warms up, that's its signal to start bulbing up. In both cases, you probably want to start your garlic in the fall because it's not going to be ready for 8 or 9 months. And if you wanted to plant it in the spring, say you're watching this video and it is March, you could. It just, as long as you have a long growing season, maybe you're harvesting in November. Most people will tell you to plant your garlic in the fall, about 6 weeks before the first frost. Although I'm a little late this year. It is November. We were supposed to have our first frost in like last week or so. So we had like a little bit of frost. Definitely my pepper plants aren't very happy, but they didn't die, like it wasn't that kind of frost. And we've got about 2 or 3 weeks of warm weather still until it's supposed to start getting really cold. So I'm planting garlic right now in zone 7B on November 9th. Most places will tell you wait until right around Halloweenish anyway. Alrighty, now all I gotta do is just dust some dirt on top of them, and then I'm going to put a little bit of mulch on top of this. I actually don't have enough, so it'll look like a really thin layer, but I'm gonna come back and put some more on top. Okay, so in terms of good things that you can use for mulch, I am using a rabbit bedding. all it is wood shavings. But another good one you can use is crushed leaves. You don't want to use whole leaves because often they're too big and flat, but crushed up leaves, like if you were to run your lawnmower over them or something, are really good mulch for garlic. Garlic will pretty easily push up through a mulch like this or like crushed leaves, so that way you can keep them covered for the winter and not have to worry about weeds. Alright, and that is pretty much all there is to planting garlic. I'll be harvesting this in about June or July. What is going to tell me that it's time to harvest is the tops, the green tops that grow up, are going to die off. And at that point, I'll know that it's ready to harvest, and you just pull them out and you kind of lay them out to finish drying outside in a nice warm dry place, and then they are ready to store for the winter. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Happy gardening.